Hey everyone, J7Jace here, bringing you a video all about the three different yet very similar knights: Dark Knight, Fell Knight, and Death Knight. The three are often considered the same, but there is actually more to it than meets the eye. So let's check them out, from abilities, equipment options, stats, and lastly, I'm going to compare them and see which is best. We will actually be taking a look at Fell Knight first, which is exclusive to Gafgarian, and for those of you familiar with the PlayStation 1 version, it was actually called Dark Knight back in the day. Even though it isn't playable through normal means, it has some incredibly strong abilities, which Shadowblade and Duskblade. Just increase your PA, equip swords with higher weapon attack, and don't use these abilities versus undead for best results. To briefly get off topic and to answer a question that does get asked sometimes, which is better, Shadowblade or Sanguine Sword, or Duskblade and Infernal Strike? In short, both Shadowblade and Duskblade are stronger in terms of damage. The Dark Knight in War of the Lions, though, does have more abilities, which we will be taking a look at later on into the video, so hang tight. Let's also not forget that the Fell Knight also has the typical default reaction, support, and movement abilities of the Squire and unique character starting jobs, which are useful in getting some of the stronger abilities later down the line. For weapons, Gafgarian's Fell Knight is limited to only swords, unfortunately, despite him being able to equip Defender in the Rendezvous mission Brave Story. And for his other equipment options, he can equip shields, helmets, heavy armor, robes, and most accessories, besides the female exclusives. For his stats and multipliers, it's a bit different from most other knights, with him being noticeably faster and having more HP. He also has 3 base move, jump, and 15% job class evasion. However, what I find a bit unorthodox is his lower physical attack, combined with the fact he can't equip knight swords despite having knight in his name. But overall, I still find him solid due to his insane abilities and speed. Now, how does it compare to the Dark Knight? Just note that the Dark Knight is exclusive only in the War of the Lions remaster. To unlock it, you'll need to master Knight and Black Mage completely, have a level 8 Samurai, Geomancer, Ninja, and Dragoon, and on top of this, you need to kill 20 enemies with said character, and have those enemies turn into treasure chests or crystals. The Dark Knight is extremely similar, but instead of Shadowblade and Duskblade, it has Sanguine Sword and Infernal Strike, which is more or less the same, with slightly weaker damage, but it's still God tier. It has 3 additional abilities, which are solid. Just note that in order to use these abilities, Dark Knights will need to have swords, knight swords, or fell swords equipped. Crushing Blow does very strong damage. Just note to be a little careful as its element is based on your weapon equipped, and its range isn't as versatile as Sanguine Sword. The next 2 abilities, Abyssal Blade and Unholy Sacrifice, if set up correctly, can take out multiple enemies, so let's check it out. Abyssal Blade, like Crushing Blow, can also have its element vary based on your weapon, and it will do more damage the closer the target is to you as well, even though in most cases, it usually can target more enemies that are further away. Just note that it will also damage you for 20% of your max HP, so be careful if you are low on HP, but you could always use Mana Shield to negate the damage. Depending on your weapon type though, a different variable or factor is calculated, depending on the weapon type you have equipped, but I found just having higher physical attack along with stronger knight and fell swords to be key. Unholy Sacrifice is also another potentially strong ability. Just note that for best results, you want to have not just higher PA and a stronger weapon, but you also want to have higher max HP as well. It has a base dark element, but it will also deal damage equal to 30% of your max HP, so use it wisely. Let's not forget the support and movement abilities of the Dark Knight. HP boost isn't the best support ability, but it will increase max HP by 20%. It's on the expensive side at 2000 JP, but I'd still use it over not having any support ability at all. Vehemence, in my opinion, is the better choice, as it's a lot cheaper, but it's a double-edged sword, as it will increase your damage by 50%, but in return, it will also take an additional 50% more damage. Just be a little careful when using it in battle. Lastly, the movement abilities will differ depending on the gender of your knight. Males will get jump plus 3 and females will get move plus 3. Back in the day of the PS1 version of Final Fantasy Tactics, Move Plus 3 couldn't be learned by the ladies, as it was exclusive to Bard. But in the War of the Lions remaster, they can now learn it. It will just take a long grind in order to do so, but Move Plus 3 and the Dark Knight abilities are insanely strong and can pay off. Now let's take a look at what they can be armed with. Despite being a knight, the Dark Knight has slightly more variety when it comes to equipment options. For their weapons, they can equip axes, flails, swords, knight swords, and bell swords. Just note that in order to use darkness, bell, knight, and regular swords are required. Finally, they can equip shields, helmets, robes, heavy armor, and clothing. For their stats, honestly, the Dark Knight isn't impressive. The only thing they really have going for it is its physical attack, which is nice. They aren't that mobile, fast, they have 0% job class evasion, not to mention their HP is nothing special, but their damage and abilities are cut above nearly all things, so they're definitely worth getting and using, especially for use in Rendezvous and in fashion shows, as they just look so stylish. Last, I'll be covering the Death Knight, which Argath uses at Lemire Castle in War of the Lions and in the Rendezvous mission in Ill Wind. It is practically the same as Gafgarian's Spell Knight in nearly all ways, from stats and equipment options. However, he has a built-in defense boost, which makes him unfortunately more capable than Gafgarian's Spell Knight, as taking virtually 33% less damage is very useful, especially as it stacks with Protect, making him a lot more tanky. To wrap this all up, the Dark, Fell, and Death Knight are very similar with their abilities and even most equipment options. If Fell Knights and Death Knights were playable through normal means, I'd give them an edge over Dark Knights in the early game as they are faster and have more HP. However, the Dark Knight will be far superior in terms of damage once things like Night Swords are available, and even though Shadow Blade is one of the best abilities in the game, there are times when Crushing Blow, Abyssal Blade, and Unholy Sacrifice will be more useful. Not to mention, their support and movement abilities in most cases will be more useful. Of these three knights, I'd rank the Dark Knight first and the best. As they have more equipment options, they will deal more damage, female characters can now get Move Plus 3, and let's not forget, they just look so cool, and the looks do matter. In second place would have to be Gafgarian's Spell Knight. He has more HP, speed, and you can't hate the guy who paved the way for us to have Dark Knights in War of the Lions. Not to mention, he's a contract man.
Sign the contract, big boy. Sign the contract.
In third or last place would have to be Argath. I know he has defense boost, and that should rank him above Gafgarian and all, but the fact that he has the same armor and look as Ramza is not cool at all. Like, you can kill Tetra, just don't take or have the same threads, man. Not cool.
You my sister, but you ain't gonna touch my shoes. You my sister.
That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time with more FFT videos. Take care.